Yo, it's me. How's it hanging? How's it happen? You guys know this is Kevin from the Chord Progression Podcast. The podcast Rolling Stone Magazine describes as the one that initiated profound discussions with rock and metal artists, allowing fans to discover the creative workflow of their favorite musicians and understand the factors that make the band succeed or fall from fame. We are also sponsored by Dark Fusion Systems, the best for your custom computing needs. Get $100 off your entire bills code CVPod at darkfusionsystems.com. Link to the podcast below. Let's go to our feature presentation. We're going to bring on some classic 2000 sounding metalcore here with a brand new twist. We have Wounded Touch on the podcast. Their new album, A Vivid Depiction of Collapse, comes out on May 16th. I do get the name wrong in the episode though, and it's kind of funny. But with that sound, with that 2000s metalcore adjacent sound, you're going to see how the band became a band, how COVID absolutely impacted their writing style on their first album, Americanxiety, and the difference that was used on A Vivid Depiction of Collapse in 2025. We also dive deep into the songs that we are most anticipating to be released and just get you into the band better than anybody else I hope ever could. So, you guys ready? Let's go! Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, listeners of the Chord Progression Podcast. You've seen us on this podcast go with some of the lighter side of rock and metal, some of the heavier sides of rock and metal. We've gone full on deathcore even this year, bringing on a band like, well, the great guys in Whitechapel. But we want to continue that heaviness. We want to continue that drive. And we found a band that perfectly fits that with a 2000s metalcore adjacent style that's going to just give you that energy to want to run through a wall, maybe get into a fight with your friends just for fun, brawl style, not like actual try and beat them up for their money, but just absolutely enjoy it every step of the way. This band is a brand new album called A Vivid Depiction of Collapse, coming out on May 16th. So why just keep hyping it up? Let's just talk to the guys about it and let's have a great time. So please welcome Dan, Jeremy, and Nick from the band Wounded Touch of the podcast. So gentlemen, welcome to the Chord Progression Podcast.
Yo.
What up?
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for being on, guys. I felt like I had a dress for the occasion. I'm like, I got to find a shirt that works. I'm like, okay, we came as Romans there from Michigan. You guys from Michigan. Perfect.
Yeah, there we go.
I grew up playing with those dudes, so.
You did?
Right. Yes, sir.
I played a show with them with their old band name.
What was their original band name? For some reason,
it was called This Emergency.
Yes,
Yeah. I played with them at a pizza shop in Waterford, so that would have been 2005.
At a pizza shop in Waterford. This Emergency, it just doesn't hit the same as We Came as Romans or saying We Car. It just doesn't have that same vibrato to it.
When they changed their name, I remember going, yeah, all right. That tracks. That makes sense.
And usually when bands change names, or they edit something like that, everyone's like, oh, you got to stick with the original. But if you get that one where okay, this actually fits or this actually works, now it's, holy shit, you're onto something.
Yeah, I hate when a band.
I'm pretty sure it's they got their name from a botch track as well, which is dope.
I've always wondered that if there was any relation to that, or if it was just coincidence. Because if they fuck with botch, then that's I'd be surprised, but it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility. Or I like when bands change their names and everybody's like, "Boo, go back to the old name," and I'm thinking, I don't know, man. I think the new name's dope. I get the original American Nightmare name, Fiasco, but I also think Give Up the Ghost was a dope band name, so I'm not opposed to the merch that has that on there.
No, Give Up the Ghost is I don't know why my brain always goes directly to Give Up the Ghost rather than American Nightmare, even though it was obviously first and, but I don't know. I'm always Give Up the Ghost.
Yeah, it's a sick name too.
Love it.
I mean, maybe they got to go back to that because now every time I'm going to hear the name American Nightmare, I'm just going to expect to see, WWE style Cody Rhodes just come out of nowhere and just
I remember that
going
too.
nuts. It's okay, now we're kind of in this whole different world at the moment.
Yeah, when I was a kid during the Attitude Era, I remember that as well, and wondering if they sounded like his intro music, which I can't remember what it was, and being really surprised that there was no relation. But that's also something that I think of too, is one because that was Goldust who did that for a second, right?
I think so. I can't. It probably has to be just because Goldust, Cody Rhodes. I mean, they're brothers in real life, so it just makes sense.
Yeah, I couldn't remember if that was what Goldust did for a second, or if that was his brother. But yeah, I could go down that rabbit hole too, that wrestling rabbit hole.
We could go down that wrestling rabbit hole as we're shooting this literally 2 weeks before night 2 of WrestleMania 41. But instead of going down the wrestling rabbit hole, which, I mean, that would change this podcast up into an entirely different thing. I want to go down the Wounded Touch rabbit hole and trying to find out as much as I can about you guys. I'm looking through it. I've seen you guys start posting music, on Spotify back in 2019. You have one album out at this point, Americanxiety, and then A Vivid Depiction of Collapse coming out on May 16th. But I really couldn't find that much more on you guys, and I want to get people to know who Wounded Touch is. I want to get them to know the backstory and how this whole entire thing came to be. So I want to hear the history of Wounded Touch. Whether you want to give me the 1-minute version, the 5-minute version, the 10-minute version, doesn't matter. Just give us that intro story to who you guys are, how this came to be, because I want to know. Everyone wants to know, and that's how we get better and deeper into the band as well with that, heaviness connection. So I'll let you guys take it away.
Well, first off, everybody's going to think the first impressions that we're turds, just because I'm going to stick in real quick and go, the record's called A Vivid Depiction of Collapse.
Oh my God.
But you know what? That's same basic metal jargon principle, right? But
I typed it. I'm looking at it, I typed it right on one spot, but I didn't type it right on another.
No, I just didn't want to do it at the end to go, well, it's been great. By the way, so I was like, I'll do it right now.
Well, in the video on the end, it's going to be at the bottom anyway, and I'll make sure it's spelt right. But of course, you guys can roast me as much as you want now, just go for it. Have fun.
No, most of us have all been in bands that have played together for a long time. Most of us are, because Jeremy, you're in your 30s now, right?
31.
Yeah, so we're all in our 30s, and I think all of us have been playing music since, at least for me, since I was 16 in 2005. But Jeremy, Dan, and then our guitarists Kyle and Mike, all of us have been in bands that played together, and pretty much just about 2018 was when we started texting, because we were all of our bands at that time had broken up in the same 6-month period, and it was just kind of wanting to do something. And I really I remember texting at least Mike and Kyle first, because I really had an itch to scratch. I'd come out of a blackened grind band, and I was like, dude, I really want to go back to playing stuff that sounds like Advent and the first Norma Jean record. And if it's just a studio project, cool. If not, we'll figure it out. So we all started texting and writing some music together, and then we were jamming with a couple people. Nick from the Swellers, he played bass for a second. Corey, who was the first drummer for Black Dahlia, we jammed with him once, and it just, trying to make everything gel. And Jeremy ended up hitting me up and being like, yo, if you're looking to jam with somebody, let me know. I'd like to play drums for that kind of hardcore metalcore. So we started jamming with him, and we just have all stuck together since. Dan is the newest member, I would say. But Dan, you've been playing with us at this point for a year, right?
Yeah, about that, maybe a little more.
Yeah, I think that's about right. So we played our first real show January of 2019, and just through some contacts, it ended up in the hands of Smart Punk, who just was like, yeah, let's put it out. And I don't know what their expectations were, but they just kind of released our first EP, and we just started playing stuff all over the place. And
I lost you.
Yo,
we still got you, man.
We still got you. You there?
Oh no, his video froze up on us. Jeremy, come back.
Oh yeah, I lost you guys for a second.
Jeremy, come back.
If we all freeze out, I guess everybody can just hop back in when it picks up.
Yeah.
But
it's James.
So we we started just playing shows locally and stuff, but our first real weekend was we decided to just do a tour in Canada, which went really well, and then it just kind of took off from there. But just like everybody else, lockdown kind of screwed a bunch of stuff up. We were really starting to just do stuff, and then lockdown hit immediately. And I would say that's really when the band formed and became what it is. While in lockdown, we were writing stuff, and which ended up being our first record. And then we recorded it in the summer of 21. So to me, in my mind, yeah, we were playing a couple local shows and some stuff. We played Fest and a couple things like Bloodfest. But to me, the band really became the band in lockdown when we were just writing and kind of just dealing with everything in that process. And we came out of lockdown just both feet hitting the ground and running, and it just hasn't really slowed down since. So unless you guys have a different thought on what the band is, to me, that's really when it became what it is, was that with that.
Oh, no, I totally agree. I should add that me and Dan Soap, we had been in a band together called From Hell. What year was that? That was about 2013, 12?
I think so.
But we had done that tour together. We did couple local things here and there, and that's kind of how, we came to know each other. And yeah, ever since, I feel like we've just had adjacent projects, and you had Forest Green for a period of time, and but yeah, that's I've known kind of about Dan and Nick for a period of time, and then I met Mike and Kyle through this band. But me and Mike had met with one of his previous projects, so everything was kind of full circle,
Yeah, I get that. And especially taking a look and just thinking back at the history of the band, I've heard many stories of bands. It's like, okay, things were going well, things were starting to pick up, and then March of 2020 hit, and of course the world just completely shuts down on everybody, especially the music industry, being the fact that with the coronavirus pandemic, there was no way that live shows were coming back anytime soon, just given the fact that it was like a virus that gets spread through, saliva or like just anything like that. And if you're singing and you're, in a huge crowd, it just was the perfect, it was the perfect virus to prevent live shows from happening. So everybody had to find a different way to go about putting their music out there, getting their name out there, and continuing the band going forward. But it's always times of adversity like that allow you guys as a group of artists, as a band, to figure out exactly not only what you're made of, but really see where this band's coming from as an entity in itself. And of course, as time has gone on, like I said, especially with Dan joining the band about a year ago, it just creates this environment that allows so many great things to happen because you've gone through potentially, the worst of times.
Yeah, and that year, I mean, like that first record is so pissed off and raw because we wrote it in such a weird way, like sending voice memos through text. I remember the first practice we got together was super emotional. It was over the summer, and we were all in different corners of a spread out room because I had to be careful. So I'm a medic, so I caught it in March of 2020, but there was never any point of knowing how recently I'd been around it or whether or not I'd caught it again. And so even when we practiced, we were like, dude, everybody go to a different corner of this big spread out room with masks on. And we jammed, and it was like, no, nobody's high five and nobody's hugging, nothing. And it was like, I think it was like the end of the summer. They had banned, like you could get in groups of less than 10, or if I remember correctly. And it was a really weird way to write, a very like distanced, like inhuman interaction. It was so strange, and it was a very angry, wild way to write material. And I think it definitely shows. I feel like that record's a time capsule, whereas with the one we're doing now, it's so different because not only do we write it differently, but just our lives are different. I mean, since that record, there's been multiple marriages, kids, everything in the band in that like 3-year time span. So that record is such a angry starting point for me for people to check us out. And if they go further back to the first EP, that was also about like some stuff going on that kind of brought the band together. But I feel like a good starting and angry starting point for people to checking us out is that record, because of just how unique the writing experience wasn't. And I don't think we'll ever have something like that again, hopefully. So
I hope to God we never have something like that again, just because no one wants to just be stuck in isolation for that long. And at that same idea, be away from live music for that long too. And it was something of a time capsule too, because you guys could probably attest this, especially like you do with Americanxiety, with it being such a pissed off record. It was a time capsule of what you guys had gone through. But if you take a look at the records that came out, like you take a look at the records that came out during the height of the pandemic in 2020, a lot of those records were already written, constructed, recorded.
Right.
So everything that was coming out had a different flair to it. But it was right around the end of 2020 and going into 2021, a lot of those records had a completely different feel to them. And they had a little bit more of an aggression to them. They had a little more of a pissed off feel. And they had a little bit more of this, what I would say is just kind of somewhat sloppier construction based on the fact that you weren't in a room together. You're passing things along via, Dropbox, WeTransfer, Zoom, voice memos, whatever it might be. So it was a little bit tougher to put that all together. And again, in 2022, it kind of had that same flow too, because 2021, everyone was started out isolated and ended the year pretty much back to where we had been, where you can just go out and have fun. But it is a time capsule we can look back at and see just how that impacted so many people, how it impacted the lives of so many, whether you are an artist or not, because every artist that went beyond that, especially the ones that aren't the biggest artists in the world, and that's what they do for a living, and that's it. Like you guys, you all have families, you have different jobs that you work too, so it impacts you in a different way. We get to see how that impact really was felt during that time, and we can look back and see just how insane it really was and be thankful that we're not in that anymore and hopefully never have to go through that again. So now with a vivid depiction of collapse, it's going to not have as that same pissed off nature to it. It is still aggressive and angry, but it's just not going to have that specific pissed off nature to
sloppy,
it because of how things have gone throughout the past couple of years.
Like you said, it doesn't have that not sloppy, but like a very raw, there's, I feel like all those records at the time, they had like this strange pacing because every record to me feels like, all right, fuck, we got to get this done now because we might not be able to do this again. So there's like this anxiousness to everything that came out at that time. So you could tell everybody not did the bare minimum, but did what they could to get it done. Whereas a lot of stuff now, people have like a craft that they've been able to hone again. At least that was my experience. Shit, I remember when we were recording, we were like masked up, and there was still like some of us had just gotten over being sick, and there was like that reality of, because Mike's son was about to be born like any day at that point, so he was gonna have to bounce at any point. So that whole recording process was like, all right, fuck, get it done. And I don't ever want to do a record that way again, but that was a very appropriate way to get that record done. And I think like this one kind of has a deeper aggression, like a more metaphysical aggression than that record. It's kind of like emotion on a much deeper level than the surface.
See, now that makes a lot of sense too. You have more time to dive deeper into things. Plus, as time has gone on, lives have changed, ideas have changed, priorities have changed. Marriages have happened in the band. Kids have happened in the band. So that takes a different perspective on it. Also, like you said, you're not working and recording when you did Vivid Depiction of Collapse with that much anxiety or that this has to get done now, because literally this recording process of the session can change at a moment's notice, because we might find out that, someone's going into labor and someone's about to become a dad, or things could just get progressively worse during that time period, health-wise, for the rest of the world, and then the shutdown restarts, and now we have to go back to square one. So now having an ability to not necessarily have that anxiety, but not have that worry going into this album's recording process, but with all of that other, ideas in mind, all these new priorities in mind, how did you guys write this one in difference compared to Americanxiety?
Well, so I feel like all of us had a backlog of stuff that we wanted to dip into, and then a lot of it would be Mike and Jeremy kind of talking back and forth. But Dan, I think when Dan joined, Dan joined in about April, and I think we recorded in July. And if memory serves correct, we wrote most of it in that time. Like, right, guys? Like,
oh yeah, definitely.
It was a
quick couple months of writing, and I feel like it really did start taking off once Dan joined in.
Yeah, is that right, Dan? Like, are we remembering that correctly?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, we wrote it in a very quick amount of time, by comparison, but it flowed together super naturally, super space naturally, not supernatural. We wrote most of it in person. There was a lot of skeletal stuff, but this band has a tendency to write in person together because then weird shit happens. Like you screw something up and you stop, and then the feedback rings out, and you go, "Ooh, what if we did stop and let that part ring out and do that?" And like there were so many little quirks like that that happened that I don't think would have happened not writing it in person. So there was a lot of additional spice thrown in that way. But we just do stuff in a very chaotic manner. So again, yeah, we had time. The world was allotting us a lot of freedom, but we still had a deadline and wrote it in like 4 months, like up to 2 weeks before recording. But
there was definitely quite a few like happy accident type moments, that happened where me or Mike, like we were probably jamming an idea, but then one of us kind of started to veer off the formula, and then it was like, oh, that actually could be really cool, and then it just kept kind of going and going. And I feel like that's other than like me and Mike sent a lot of demo file type things to each other, I feel like there's a couple songs where he sent me something and I wrote to that, at home, and vice versa. I showed him something and he kind of wrote to it, on the fly. But it was really us coming together, and like I feel like we have a tendency to, when we're warming up, we don't have a lot of time to always practice or warm up, but there's that sweet spot of like 15-20 minutes where someone's not fully set up, and then we'll start jamming. The rest of us will start playing music, and we just kind of naturally work so well together that we created some ideas doing it that way.
It felt like a very human record to me. There was a lot of like, to me, that's how I'd sum it up. Americanxiety, the first record's very like angry and it's a response, whereas this record to me feels very much like a collective human emotion between the five of us.
Yeah, definitely a more cohesive, all around album. Like this, the first one kind of feels like ideas together, whereas this one is a lot more, there's, I don't know, more of a point, more of a, definitely all of us were more connected with this record, just due to COVID and such with the first. But yeah, a lot more, feel like a lot more attention to detail was put into
Definitely.
this new release.
Well, what do you think,
yeah.
Kevin? Listening to it, do you notice a difference between the two?
You definitely notice a difference between the two because of the writing style that is there. And one thing I kind of notice about Americanxiety is it does sound like it sounds like there are 5 different ideas that are trying to come together to create one album. And that's just based off of how it had to be written, how it had to be done. But with A Vivid Depiction of Collapse, it feels like 5 ideas trying to create something together instead of just trying to come together and match with each other. So again, where the pissed off styles of Americanxiety comes in, it does have that aggression, it does have that anger, but there are times where it's just, you can tell that natural feeling of ideas meshing together. There's a little bit more of a, I'm not going to say like conflicting feels, but it's just, it doesn't fit in together because they weren't able to mesh in a room as you guys were figuring them out. Like it did with a Vivid Depiction of Collapse. It feels like the ideas had times to come together and really mold into each other, so it sounded like a more cohesive unit. And that's all based off of the human experience. You're not going to be able to get that unless you're working together and you're just letting these things flow and having those pieces be inspired on the spot. That also comes up with, when people are talking about how AI is working, how it might, take over music. You're not going to have that human interaction that can cause so many of those great things to happen.
Yeah.
And that's where some of the greatness in music happens. So when it comes to writing Americanxiety, it sounded like, 5 guys, different ideas, coming together as one, but just trying to fit into each other to figure out how this is going to work. Vivid Depiction of Collapse, it feels like those 5 ideas are coming together, but really molding into each other to create what ended up coming out.
I think that's fair. I think we all probably would agree about that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so it's nothing to knock, the Americanxiety, nothing against,
sure.
Vivid Depiction of Collapse. It's the way that they were written. It's the way, again, we are seeing the way that they're written, and then you can tell that there is a difference there, but it shows just, again, the human experience that we went through with the pandemic, with how bands run. It's a time capsule of that period. Now, this is a time capsule of the period for the last couple of years that you guys had gone through. Beyond that, and seeing how different ideas have formed, not only musically, but also mentally with where the record was going to go and what you wanted to show with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree. I would say we all would come to that same conclusion.
I feel like, pretty much nailed it, I just, us being able to sit, I still feel like we wrote this new album with some fire as far as timing goes, and there's a little bit of a deadline kind of thing happening, but I still feel like we really took time with each part, and there's always going to be a little bit of studio writing that happens naturally, and usually for good reason, so it wasn't like everything was completely fleshed out, but as far as it was definitely a huge step forward as far as us writing together and
holding
really
ourselves accountable to be a little more professional in some
totally. That's a really good point. I feel like there was a big progression with our everybody's mindsets on writing a song and making it you know hit the way it should hopefully hit and so forth.
Oh, totally understandable. And I'm just looking through like the past artists that I've brought on the podcast, and there have been times I've talked to them about working alongside other artists, seeing what they've talked about. And there's been a number of times where they bring up, we've worked on all this stuff together, we've created this, we've made this a great thing. And then there's some studio writing that happens because now you're bringing it in the studio. Again, you're still doing it all together. It's being formulated as your own band, as your own ideas. But maybe there's something that whoever's producing the record might have an idea of, this could absolutely work out, and it's an idea you might not have thought of, but it's the idea that you wanted to have happen. Like they could see something in there. I recently had a conversation with the band Acres over in the UK. They came over and recorded their new album in Michigan, coincidentally with Landon Tours from the Plot and You. And they said something very similar. They had a lot of ideas already pretty formulated when they got, or maybe, I don't think they had ideas when they formulated when they got there. They just did it all in the studio, and then they showed it to Landon, and it's just like, okay, he had an idea of something to maybe try, and they put it in there, and then it worked. So you guys are still doing that thing where it's 5 guys writing together, and it's molding into a cohesive thing, and maybe there's something that you wanted to put in there, but you just didn't think about or just didn't have that full inspiration yet where somebody else saw on the production side. So you change it in the studio and then bing, bang, boom. It still has that whole cohesive flow that this album has.
When Andy Nelson, sorry. What were you going to say, Jeremy?
Actually, you go first because you might say similarly what I was going to bring up. So,
well, I was going to say that Andy Nelson, who we did the record with, is a phenomenal producer as well as an engineer, and I don't even know.
Totally.
Yeah, I don't think he'd necessarily regard himself as a producer at first, but he just has such a wealth of ideas, and he's a great third party to hear stuff and go, "Hey, I have an idea of how we can take what you're doing and amp up what you're trying to achieve." Like but he's also not that guy who has a my way or the highway energy. He will almost always go, all right, if this is really what you want to do and you have a reason for it, I'm down for it. But he is so great at hearing something and going, hey, I think you're trying to accomplish this, and I think you could accomplish it more by doing this instead. And I would say most of his ideas always end up making it. He's
totally
phenomenal person to record with it and engineer aspects of a release with. So I can't recommend him enough.
Fully agree. And there was times where there was things maybe I wasn't sure about that he was like, you better do that again.
Yeah.
Or, and it's like, oh, okay, say no more. But there's just a lot of it's like you get the best energy on all aspects, all ends of what you want to take from recording an album as far as the engineer producer. You get the yeah, like Nick said, can't stress enough. Just great dude to work with. And the whole studio in general, Bricktop,
Even just
great,
hanging
great
out,
spot.
like
Oh
when
yeah,
Dan,
love hanging out.
I remember Dan was like, "Hey man, if I don't even end up playing the parts, if Mike ends up playing the bass on some parts, I just want to come hang out." And then Dan ends up on the record anyways. But it was still just it's a fun environment to hang out in and write, and I just always look forward to that. Some people live is the only thing they care about, and they try to rush through the recording. But to me, the recording process is such a fun and important process.
Yep.
I think that's also just depend upon who people are as artists, because there are times where people, they just want to feed off the live energy and they want to create those moments in that space. There are artists that just want to create those sounds and create those moments in the studio and they never want to get out there. There's some artists that want to do both. There's never a problem on any of those. But it always seems like the artists that want to not only deliver in the studio, but then deliver live as well are the ones that create those moments and create those sounds that still attract us to this day. I'm not saying that, a band that's just focused on the live set or a band that's just focused on, the recording process can't make absolutely phenomenal music, because we've seen it happen. But it seems like more and more over, it's bands that really take that full piece of the artistry of, this is what you're creating in the studio. It's your chance to mold this completely into what you want it to be. What this message, what the sound wants to be, it's your time to put it out there. But then live, it's now you have a chance to present this in your own way to the audience. So you have the sound, you have the bass. Now let's give it to them in a way that they're never going to be able to forget.
Oh yeah, totally.
Because there's bands that you see out there that like their live shows. You probably have artists too where it's like, I'm not really big into like listening to them, but I will go see them live any chance I get. Or
Definitely.
Artists that you'll be like, I don't really care to see them live, but I will listen to them because their music is fantastic. It's just the way it is. We also have our favorite bands that we go see because we love their music, and live is just like, oh my God, this is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like I don't listen to them as much now, but like Smashing Pumpkins is a band for me where like I love hearing about their studio experiences, and like there's a lot of opinions about certain members now, won't get into, but like just hearing how much just like passion they had for their studio sessions and how it was all recorded live, and just so many takes over just because they're like, we need to present this the right way, and like that's a band I always kind of think of like with studio work is like, whatever you need to do to get that end result that is going to be hopefully memorable and sticks with you forever.
Now, you guys have gone through the studio process for a Vivid Depiction of Collapse, and there is a question I always love to ask around the topic of a new album. So at the time of recording this, there are already 3 singles that are out. I'm going to remove those singles from consideration because as fans, people are able to hear them. By the time this episode releases, they'll still be out there for people to listen to. But there's going to be tracks that people have not heard yet. And am I going to ask you for your favorite? Nah, that just doesn't sound right, because it's like picking a favorite child. It's just something you can't do. But I will ask it this way. Out of the remaining songs that have yet to be released, which song are you most excited for people to check out upon release, and why?
Dan, you go first.
Mine is probably Make Your Pain My Own, first song on the record. It just hits so hard and it's big sounding. And I'm a big Gear guy, so like it just hits home for me.
Yeah, that's a dope one.
Yeah, that one, we tried out live and I was very happy. Just playing it is so fun and it just hits so hard. So definitely track 1 is up there. That's a hard question though, because they're all so fun in their own ways, you know.
Yeah, mine is either Every Grieving Peace or An Unscarred Purpose. They're both very emotive songs that kind of feel big. First, like both lyrical content and the fact that like we experimented with some really melodic stuff, but those are the songs that had there's no clean vocals. There's nothing like pretty about those, even though they're the most melodic tracks on the record. And I feel like they contain a lot of what the record could be summed up with. So for me, it's one of those two. I would say An Unscarred Purpose if I could pick one for me, but
I'd say probably Every Grieving Piece too is actually, it's probably number one. That one, I feel like, I don't know, there's a lot of layers to that. I know that's a song that Mike has had, you know, close to him for a long time. And to put that into a reality, it, you know, hearing it for the first time was, it was kind of unreal. You know, it was like, wow, this is a very intense song, even though it's one of the more melodic songs. It's like, for me, probably the most intense song. So I'm very excited for that one.
See, now this is exactly what I love, where we've got 3 different takes on it. We've got 3 different songs that are really the core of what you guys are seeing. And then it comes like, okay, there was one song on this record that I was most excited for people to hear upon release, and you guys didn't even say it. So it just shows there is something here that people are going to be able to latch onto, and it all depends upon what song you really are going to latch onto. There's going to be one there. It just depends upon what your tastes are and
right
how it just hits you in the, you know, not only here, but here, and then just makes you want to run through a wall.
Well,
what
now
was
I'm curious.
The song that you picked?
I went with song number 3, Dreams in Triage.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
That one's like number 3 or 2 or 3. Like it's that one I have a lot of fun playing on drums, you know, personally. It's like, I don't know, it has like certain grooves that for me is like a more just fun thing to play rather than necessarily like anything too complicated, you know. It's so that one I'm like, for that reason alone, is definitely up there.
Yeah, because I'm just taking a look at the notes I had on that song too, because that was the one where at the end of it I put a highlight piece on there. So I'm like, okay, this is the one you don't want to forget about, Kevin. And it was like there was a little bit of like a poppier pattern put to it, which made it have a little bit more of this upbeat feel, more of that fun feel of what you're talking about. There are some cranks on the guitar distortions there that add to that little bit of a craziness of like a dream and then distorting into a nightmare. The vocals in the front of the mix allow that to really stand out. And the last sentence I wrote that I highlight on this was, this song was like a dream turning into a nightmare and you fighting back all in under 3 minutes.
Oh, that's great. I love that.
Hell yeah.
And it kind of fits with the song title, you know, and, you know, everything. So that's awesome.
No, that'll be a fun one to play live too. I'm excited to play that at the record release.
Yeah, can't wait to bust that one out.
So when it comes to getting this record out and getting people to hear it live, what's the idea? What's the angle? What's the plan?
So we have a lot of so as of this recording, I don't know what will be announced yet. But so we've announced Furnace Fest. But there's like 2 or 3 other bigger festivals in the fall. The rest of it is just some big regional stuff. We're playing locally, or like at least in the Midwest, but we're trying to just concentrate on getting it in front of as many ears as possible. And we're just trying to push it in that manner. We're also a band that has the ability to do a lot of content for streaming as well as for our socials. So we're just going to try to push it and put it in front of as many ears. We can't force people to like it. We can't force people to buy it, but I can do my damnedest to force you to hear it. What you take away from it is what you take away from it. But my goal has always been, I'm going to make you listen to this and I'm going to make sure you're not bored. If you like it, you know, that ultimately is the listener's choice. But to me, I think we've always been like, all right, you're not going to be bored during our set. That's the goal.
And it's no wonder why, taking a look at like the press release that I got for you guys, that, you know, you're doing Furnace Fest this year in 2025, but you had done it in 2021 and 2023. So that's a festival that, you know, if you're putting on a boring set, the crowd's going to let you know, and then you're probably not going to show back up the next year, you know, again. But if you're putting on one hell of a set, the crowd's going to demand you to be back and for you to play again and again and again.
Yeah, I hope so. 23 was good, but 21, that was like our second show out of lockdown. And I remember that was like something just so unique that night. We played the official pre-show with Norma Jean and Remembering Never, and that was super wild. And I'm really
just pure
excited.
Craziness that even happened.
Right. So I'm so excited for this year too, especially because the day we're playing at Furnace, Still Remains, who's from Michigan, also is playing, and the fact that TJ, their singer, is on one of the tracks on the record. So there's just a lot of cool stuff that's lining up. And, you know, I don't think by the time this is out, we will have announced all the other stuff we're trying to play, but this is that typical big things coming, like sentence, but there are. I mean it. It's not big things coming. We're playing down the street. So, yeah.
The machine shop.
Yeah, exactly. With Tantric.
Oh, good old Tantric. Damn.
They're gonna hear this and go, I was on board with this band, but you know what? Fuck these guys now. That's what's gonna happen.
Hey, no disrespect in the machine shop, though. I hear so many good things about that venue. So,
you know what's funny?
I'll say this. Dope
I've actually
stuff.
never been there.
No, me neither. And there's always stuff I have wanted to go see, as just like, that's definitely like where you got to go see a band like Sevendust or something play.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
that's just the environment for sure.
Yeah, they literally just played there.
Yeah,
so.
I know. I'm not even.
I wanted to go.
I'm not even gonna pretend like I wasn't considering going. So
no, I almost
disrespect.
got a ticket. Not even gonna lie.
Yep. Sevendust at the machine shop sounds like the thing that has to be done, because that place is going to just go buck wild. And it's Sevendust. I've never seen Sevendust put on nothing short of one of the best performances of the entire year.
Really?
Oh, that's awesome.
I love that record, Animosity, in elementary school. So I would, if we were playing a fest they were playing, I would absolutely watch their full set. So
oh no, yeah,
that's our new metal path that we're going to travel down.
Can't take the new metal out of me.
well, if you guys are getting a chance to see Slipknot, especially play with all of them alongside them at a festival, you gotta just take that chance. Because the best part about it is, I remember I had Lejean on the podcast 2 years ago, and I asked him about, like, you know, they're definitely a band that a lot of people know, but they always play, like, you know, kind of earlier in the day or middle of the day.
Right.
And he's like, yeah, because we like to watch our friends perform. So they want to watch and support everybody else. They're like, we'll just kind of get out of the way. But they end up creating like a midday headliner or whatever space they're on, because every time I've seen them at a festival and they've had that spot, everyone just flocks to that stage like none other, and everyone is all into it. I've seen them play live, and I've seen them open up for Alter Bridge before, and it's like, now this is Miles Kennedy and Mark Tremonti going up after them. This is one of the best voices and probably one of the best guitarists of all time. And it's like, you have to follow Sevendust. This is going to be damn hard for them to even like recreate that kind of a feel that people can get into. Even at festivals, it's so hard for Seven to get back into it after you see Sevendust. Like, you need an hour or two, and it's like, okay, we'll see who pick back up, but damn.
That specific song, Praise, off that record, Animosity, I remember has such an ass beater riff in it that we all in our phones and our notes have like covers notes and stuff. And that's one that's been sitting in mind for a while. Like, man, because, you know, we've done, I think, non-typical covers. Like, you know, our first cover we ever recorded was a Deftones cover. We did a Finch cover this year. So I feel like I feel like we're definitely going to be that band who, if we do a cover, it's going to always continue down that path of, all right, well, let's cover something that doesn't really sound like us.
Oh, yeah, totally. Which is just more fun usually anyways.
Yeah.
So then I maybe cover Sevendust, or if you really want to take something and try, because we had mentioned a little bit of the WWE stuff before we even got started the recording. What if you covered Metalingus by Alter Bridge?
Oh man, no! If we're gonna do a Mark Tremonti thing, it's gonna be "What If" by Creed.
What if? Oh yeah.
That another undercover ass beater riff. That like, if you pull everything out of it, and you just heard that riff, you go, man, this is mean as shit. And then you add everything, and you're like, oh, okay, I see how this fits. That's not what I expected. Like,
all right, we're calling it right now. Wounded Touch is going to cover a Creed song, and it's going to go over so well that they are going to be in Dallas on Thanksgiving Day to do the halftime show of the Cowboy game, and there will be flying men in sheets all across the stadium.
It's going to be me. I'm flying down.
It's going to be us. We're going to fly in, you know.
I'm going to have like the Phil Collins headset mic on, and I'm going to fly down singing.
But then the shirtless guy that's flying around that everyone's like enamored on, it's gonna be Scott Stapp.
Yeah, he's gonna join us. He's gonna be like, you know what, guys?
The roles are reversed.
Let me come help you guys out with this one.
Oh, it would be just absolutely epic. Who knows? You might just get that absolute blow up moment. I'm hoping it happens. We'll see what happens, but you guys definitely got a lot going on this year. You've got a brand new again coming out on May 16th. There's going to be more stuff to be announced by the time this episode releases and likely after this episode releases as well. So make sure you stay in the know with Wounded Touch. But gentlemen, I've got one last question I want to ask you before we wrap this up. This is something I love to ask every artist I bring on the podcast. I've been doing this for almost 2 years now in terms of asking this question. It's a way for us to get to know more great new music and for you guys to help support the music you love as well. I always ask for 3. There are 3 of you, so I'm going to ask for 1 of each. But can you guys give me a band or artist that you love that you would love to see more people get into right now?
Oh, see, I have the opposite problem. Now there's too many. I feel like some people are probably like having to think about it, and now all right, well, we'll go in order. To me, I'm going to say check out my guys in this band called Chorus of Demons. It's an old friend of mine named Mike is the guitarist in that. Our friend Devin from Remembering Never is also in it. And it's like a modernized bolt thrower. Heavy fucking band. They've been supporting us. That's a band that I'm going to shout out for people to check out.
I'll go ahead and say Prostitute. Great local band. They're kind of blown up right now. Really unique stuff. It's more on the noise rock side of things. Kind of just got to see it or hear it. It's a whole thing, but it's brilliant. And yeah, there's, like Nick said, it's kind of like hard to think about it because there's so many. There's so many. Great friend. Bands.
Depending on who Dan shouts out, there's going to be some friend that's going to go, damn, man, thanks for not mentioning us.
Man, honestly, you kind of took my answer, dude. We just played my other band, Moral Pollution. We just played with Chorus of Demons a couple weeks ago, and they're so fucking sick. Like, everything about it. Sick dudes. The music's just beyond heavy. I don't know, man. That was in my head. Chorus of Demons fucking rocks.
If that was yours?
Yeah.
All right.
Hey, how about this? Because we already had Chorus of Demons, we had Prostitute, and then we had Dan's other band. Why not give Dan's other band a shout out?
Moral Pollution.
Moral Pollution, yeah. If you fuck with if you fuck with stuff that like you can blast while flipping off the cops, that's it.
Well, I know what I'm doing later when I, just go driving around just for the hell of it.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, it's great driving music. No, that's perfect.
But I drive from Wisconsin all the way to Michigan. I'm going to create an interstate thing so that, we get all these different state troopers that come by, and I'll come to one of your houses, just wave hello as I'm probably being tackled on the lawn by, 4 different state troopers telling me I have the right to remain silent while my middle finger's still up behind me like, I got it!
Yeah, you'll have listened to the EP like 30 times by that point based on its runtime. So.
I may just have to like change it up a little bit, just put some variety in there. May need to throw some like Alpha Wolf or Knock Loose in there just to, keep the blood flowing and just kind of get that same energy, but just a little bit of a different sound. So maybe I'll listen to the EP 20 times on the drive.
There you go.
Yeah, nice 20,
Nice 20, but of course, right before I pull up to the house and, get arrested and everyone's waving at me, I've got to play Higher by Creed.
There you go.
Oh, there you go. Perfect.
That might get you out of a ticket, dude. Cops Creed.
Cops love Creed.
And Phil Collins.
They love Phil Collins. They like the one song.
Yeah, no, they love him.
I would go Creed over
twice. Oh no.
I would say I'd go Creed over Phil Collins. I can't get the whole Phil Collins thing from South Park out of my head ever, so I'm sticking with Creed.
Oh yeah, always
a classic. Well, guys, I want to thank you for taking the time for coming to the podcast. I really appreciate it. I'm going to close this out with 3 things. So first things first, I'm making sure I get the name right. A Vivid Depiction of Collapse comes out on May 16th, 2025 from Wounded Touch. They've got plenty of other shows that are going to be playing throughout 2025 that will have likely been announced by the time this episode releases. And if they haven't, they're going to be damn due to announce them. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to go script for the podcast floor. It says find Wounded Touch online. Links, labels for everything, for social media, where you can find them online, where you can find where those shows are going to be played, where you can find the album upon release, and where you can stream it to your heart's content. They're all going to be down there for you, so go. It's labeled. All you have to do is click, and that's it. I'm doing all the hard work for you. All you have to do is just do the last little bit. Just like what good old Nick said, trying to get as many people to listen to this record or have a chance to listen to the record, we're trying to give you as many chances to get into this band. But all you have to do is just take that one tap, one click, and you're good to go. Now it's time for number 2, gentlemen. Whenever I guest in the podcast, I enjoy the podcast. I tend to make a certain promise as a way to say thank you. I appreciate you taking the time, and I wish you continue to support the band in the future. And this is how I do it. It's not an if, it's a when I see you guys perform live for the first time. So it's going to happen. We just don't have a day or time set. When I see you perform live for the first time, I will find you. I will come and say hello to you. I might be sweaty as shit from the pit and having a blast. But the real promise is first round's on me.
Oh,
hell yeah.
Nice.
Buy me a Sprite.
That is, hey, that's fine. If you guys don't drink, but you're like, buy me a Sprite, buy me a Red Bull, I'm good with that too.
That works for us, man.
My dude.
We'll get you on the next.
Hell yeah. And now it's time for number 3. I cannot end this by saying goodbye. That is way too final. Guys, this was a blast. I'd love to have you back on the podcast again in the future. Beyond that, though, I got to make good on that promise. Goodbye. Too damn final. This is. I'll see you later.
Take it easy. Thank you.
Woo! Well, folks, my interview with the guys from Wounded Touch. We had Dan, Jeremy, and Nick. And now it's time for Kevin's final thought. And my final thought is this. I think still, we got to still talk about like what happened during the pandemic, especially from a musical side. Yes, I know it was 5 years ago, and thankfully it was 5 years ago, but I love the fact that we can go back and we can take a look at just how the writing process for some bands have evolved and how it maybe got better directly after the pandemic, especially for rock and metal, and let me dive deep into it. Of course, we all heard about how rock and metal was dead back in like the 2010s, everyone was making the same kind of stuff. You could see a tick up in around 2018, 2019. I always look at it back when like Architects released Holy Hell and there was starting to get a little bit more of a differentiation piece in there. But when the pandemic hit, artists were working from their homes. Artists were working away from themselves. And like I said, with Wounded Touch, it sounded like 5 guys trying to take their ideas and blend them together, where with a Vivid Depiction of Collapse, it was now they're all together. They're able to create and work on this together. Everyone's going to have their own ideas, but they're able to blend and mesh together and really become one of a cohesive instead of trying to like fit together like puzzle pieces. So you're seeing different styles come from that. You're seeing different writing processes come from that. You're seeing how producers are helping out artists even more so throughout that time period. And you're seeing the absolute rise of rock and metal artists or rock and metal adjacent artists in, the last couple of years. I brought this up in the past and you're seeing it happen. I mean, look, 2020, especially with everything that shut down, I got to give it to Bring Me the Horizon. That first post-human survival horror was really the thing that just got people even more connected to it. 2021, the emergence of Spirit Box. 2022 was the year of Bad Omens. 2023 was Sleep Token's year and nobody else's. 2024 was Knocked Loose's year. And Ronnie Radke and Funniverse are always hanging around there doing something wacky. But it always stands out as, the writing process, as we learned in 2020 and going beyond, has evolved for a lot of bands because of what happened in 2020. And you're seeing the time capsule of what was before that, the time capsule of that transition period because of what had happened in like 2021, 2022 releases, and now how I think writing, especially in rock and metal, has gotten even better. It just keeps standing out as a great thing, and I hope it continues. I want to thank Nick, Jeremy, and Dan for coming to the podcast. When it comes to Wounded Touch, the description of the podcast below, links, labels for everything to find them, to find the album, find them playing live is all down there, so go and follow along with them. Be sure to follow along on the Chord Progression Podcast pages. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Those are below as well. Hit subscribe right down here if you're on YouTube. Hit the follow or subscribe button on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Hit the like button on the episode to help push in the algorithm. I want to thank the guys for being on the podcast today. Let's hope this ain't the only time. And that's good for me and everything. I was listening to the Chord Progression Podcast. My name is Kevin, and you guys know how to do music. Send single episodes. See ya!